Will consuming a small blueberry-like fruit from New Zealand make you an elite ultrarunner? No, there's no magic pill. I got to chat with Fleur Cushman from Curranz about some of the research that has been being done on blackcurrant from New Zealand and about how it can actually be beneficial to runners and athletes. Not a magic pill, just beneficial. So let's jump into that.
So, hi Fleur, welcome. Thank you for taking the time to chat with me today.
Hi, Jill. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
No problem. So, let's just start with the most basic. What is Curranz?
Certainly. So, Curranz is a runner's supplement, and it's made from a plant supernutrient called anthocyanins, which most people have never heard of, and it's a real mouthful. But these are plant compounds that are naturally present in fruits and vegetables and flowers, and they're particularly high in New Zealand black currants. So, look, black currants are not common in America, but they're really commonly consumed in Europe and the Southern Hemisphere countries like New Zealand. But the black currants grown in New Zealand are very, very special because they have one of the highest densities of these berry bioactives called anthocyanins. In fact, more than any other berry fruit or fruit found anywhere in the world. And there's a really nice story here, and it's a story about the climate, that these black currants are stimulated by the really strong ultraviolet sunlight in New Zealand. Really long summer days and cold winters result in these berries producing really high levels of these fantastic bioactives, which are actually amongst the most important phenolics in our food. But very sadly, and unfortunately, most people do not consume enough of these purple anthocyanins in their diet. And in fact, the average consumption for an American is only about 12 milligrams a day on average. Now, whilst there isn't a recommended dietary intake for anthocyanin, 1 to 2 capsules of Curranz contains about 105 to 210 milligrams of anthocyanin, which has really well researched benefits for their health and fitness properties at that dosing level. So you can underconsume, but they have really amazing benefits for you. And in terms of Curranz for runners and active people, we've found it is a new breakthrough in sports nutrition, and these bioactives have antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and blood flow promoting properties. And so a capsule of Curranz is a dose controlled form, which is equivalent to eating a really large handful of fresh New Zealand black currants. And so you can add it to your drinks and smoothies. And we've removed all the fiber in it just to make it really practical for consuming around training and competition. And so we're a decade into our research now, Jill, and we've made some really amazing discoveries. It's a really unique berry. It's fast acting, and it comes with other bonus health benefits as well.
So, are black currants the only place that you can really get these bioactives in your diet, or is it just the most
No.
easy way to get the mass amount of them into your diet?
That's a really great question, Jill. And look, if you consume fruits and vegetables, they say about eating the rainbow. If you're having citrus, if you're having yellow, orange, red,
Yeah.
green fruits and vegetables, you'll be getting anthocyanins there as well. But it's just the purple fruits and vegetables, and particularly berries, that are really rich in these compounds. And there are hundreds and hundreds of anthocyanins found in nature. But specific to black currants is that they have a really unique profile of these particular anthocyanins that have really powerful antioxidant and blood flow promoting properties. So we always recommend that you eat a really varied and well-balanced diet to get, all your macro and micronutrients. But what we've found is that New Zealand black currants in particular are a really wonderful source of these compounds. So you can really get a good daily allowance from eating them.
Great. Yeah, it's kind of interesting because shortly before I was even introduced to Curranz, I saw an article in, I think it was UK Women's Running Magazine, and they talked about some study that was done by the University of Chester about how taking even just one dose, runners saw about a 5% improvement in their running. And I'm sitting there,
Yeah.
that's kind of amazing. So
Yeah.
how does this help runners and like maybe other athletes too? How would that be applicable to them?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's worth saying that, while the product is getting really popular with runners, it's great for any other endurance sport or anyone just starting out and really struggling with muscle soreness, which is a real
Hmm.
barrier to regular, consistent exercise. So it's not just used by elite athletes, it's really, suitable for anyone who wants to be more active or increase their training load. And so just to get back to your question, Jill, yeah, how does it help? So these anthocyanins, as I've mentioned, have a really incredible array of benefits. So they help to prime the body to cope with the stress of exercise, which usually results in, muscle soreness and fatigue, which they call, DOMS, the dreaded
Yeah.
DOMS, the delayed onset muscle soreness. And we've seen in studies that it is really wonderful for your recovery. It leads to 3 times faster recovery of muscle function, and it halves that muscle soreness. So that's one key benefit that most people immediately notice.
Hmm.
And I'm interested to hear how you found it when we'll get back to that
Yeah.
and later in the interview. But in terms of that 5K running study at the University of Chichester, so that was another performance study that we have done, and this was the first area that we started to investigate with Curranz was that because it's promoting blood flow, is it going to improve performance? And we have found in many, many studies now that it really does. So we've seen if you take 1 or 2 capsules, like the lower dose of the product for a week, that it will increase your running performance, your cycling, walking, and climbing performance in ranges up to 11%, which is a huge finding.
Yeah.
But now we're starting to look at whether can one higher dose work. We know that one low dose will not work for performance, but we're starting to investigate whether one high dose of 3 or even
Hmm.
4 capsules will work. And so that 5K running study that you saw in Women's Running Magazine UK was one of the first data sets that we published, showing that yes, if you take 3 capsules 2 hours before you run a 5K test, that it will increase your average running time by 38 seconds. Now, just to put that into context, that is equivalent to improvement that a recreational 5K runner would normally see after a full season's training block.
Wow.
So it's a really great hack if you're, going out and doing your park run at the weekend 5K,
Hmm.
and you're wanting to improve your times, that you can get this performance effect from just one dose, or you can get it from dropping it and taking the product for a week.
That's amazing. I think the way that I saw it, I haven't used it a whole ton yet, but I have gut troubles. My gut gets gurgly when I run. And I found that after I had my daughter, it seemed to be worse, and which is, I don't know why exactly, but my tests with this is that I found that I didn't have to stop and walk to like try to make my gut try to settle. And so,
Yeah,
can you speak about how
yeah,
this helps with runners' trots? I mean, that whole
definitely.
dreaded zone, that's not a place that any runner wants to be in. So,
No, and Jill, it affects so many runners, and particularly in the heat, it makes it
mhm.
so much worse.
I
So,
live in Las Vegas, so we've got
oh,
the heat.
you really do. You really do. And the problem with running in the heat is that it's really stressful on the body. And
Mhm.
so, to help try and regulate temperature, the body redistributes blood flow away from the gut. And that's where the problems start. And it leads to leaky gut and all of these symptoms
Mhm.
like nausea, stitch, vomiting and diarrhea in the worst instances, but it's super common, and there aren't many things that really you can take for it.
Yeah,
Is the other thing,
yeah.
and it affects 90% of endurance athletes. So if you're struggling to train and race, we have found that if you take 2 capsules of Curranz for 7 days, that it will dramatically increase the protection against runners' trots. So we've seen that in the study that we did, and we've got our third paper about to be published, that it dramatically improves gut barrier function and it reduces all the cell damage that you get from running in the heat by up to 40%. So we've seen some very big numbers in the study, and we also saw that it reduced total gastric stress symptoms in 73% of the runners tested in the study. And look, we've been supplying runners with the product, and runners have been using it for up to a decade, and also ultra marathoners using it in, really inhospitable environments, like running multi-day stage races across the Sahara and Namibian deserts. And we consistently get feedback from these runners that they just do not experience the same symptoms and issues that other runners in these races do. And people literally are falling like flies and dropping out of these events because they can't take on nutrition and their gut falls apart. And once that happens, it's game over. We've seen it anecdotally in the field for a very long time. So it's really interesting now that we have the data sets to start explaining why and how it's helping. And it's quite clever in that it seems to be reducing the body's stress response to that heat, but you do need to take it for 7 days just to really prime the body for the heat, and then it will, it seems to be really supporting. So it's really great, Jill, that you've seen that in real life as well.
Yeah. So you say that taking it for 7 days. So is like the vision that this becomes one of your daily supplements or something like that? Because the way I took it is I had read something on your website or something, I think, that said take it 2 hours before your workout. And so I'm thinking, okay, that's what I'll do. And so I didn't take it consistently. I took it one day, 2 hours before I was going to run. And then I was doing weights the next day or something. And then I ran a couple days later and I did it the 2 hours before. And like I said, I noticed some improvements there with my gut, but I hadn't done the 7-day stretch. And so
okay. Well, look, that's an excellent question. And the reason why we say take it 2 hours before you train is that it generally takes about 2 hours for it to be absorbed into your bloodstream.
Okay.
And you want to be coinciding your training with having these bioactives peaking in your bloodstream, because that's when the magic happens. So that's why we say try and take it 2 hours before you train. Now, we're seeing that actually in our studies, and we have over 50 published studies now, that blackcurrant is better with regular intake, and it seems to be changing something over time.
Okay.
Now, so while we've seen that it can work really well for muscle recovery just before you train, is definitely a way that you can take it, and a higher dose to improve your performance. We see that the real benefits just start getting going at 7 days. They improve at 14 days, and even at 5 weeks, we've seen really, really great changes, particularly in terms of oxidative stress and inflammation, which are, stress factors that result from intense training, and you really want to control those through your diet. So so blackcurrant changes something over time, which is why we recommend just drip feeding it into your system, even taking one a day on a rest day.
Okay.
You will get full-blown benefits over time. But do you know what? If you forget, and a lot of people don't get into a routine with it, then the golden rule, if you can remember, is to take it before you train.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Are there any contradictions or concerns about any audiences who should not be taking this?
Well, look, we say, like any supplement, don't take it if you're pregnant. And if you are on medication, consult with your doctor first. We, are aware that the product improves blood flow. It's a natural vasodilator. So particularly for anyone who might be on blood thinners, definitely check with your doctor. So, we've been in the market since 2014. We've sold over 150,000 units of Curranz, and we have very, very, very few adverse reaction reports. This has a really high safety level, this product. And remember, it's just made from natural New Zealand blackcurrants, so there's nothing else in it.
That's good to know. I happened to get mine just shortly before I was supposed to get some blood drawn, because I had my thyroid removed a couple of years ago from thyroid cancer. And so I'm saying, I won't take it like right before my blood work, just to be safe. I don't know if it's going to have any impact, but I did try Googling and I didn't see anything about how it would impact any kind of thyroid levels or anything that way. But just thought I'd go straight to the source and ask on that one. And
Right.
obviously, since you've got pro runners using it and everything, it's clean, it's good for, good, clean, safe sport type product.
Absolutely. Look, it has always been part of our whole rationale that every single batch of Curranz is third-party tested and screened
Mhm.
for banned substances in sports. So yes, it comes with that third-party testing certification, and every single batch is subjected to rigorous quality tests. So it's always uniform, it's always consistent, and it will be the same batch after batch.
That's good to know. I see that pro runner Hayden Hawks has been using it recently, and I like to follow his career because we both graduated from the same university, although I think I probably graduated like 15 years before he did. But he burst onto the scene and I was like, hey, look at that. That's a funny coincidence. But I saw
Amazing.
something recently. He was just saying how, he used this and he had such a good race experience and it's improved, so much of
Yes,
his racing.
no, definitely. Hayden has been using Curran since February 2023.
Okay.
And he put the product to the acid test, and he has definitely seen a massive change in his recovery. And also we had a call with him actually last
Mhm.
week, just because he's going to UTMB
Yeah.
in 10 days' time. And we just wanted to catch up with him and hear how he was doing. And it was interesting because he was so excited with how he performed at Western States, where he was
Uh-huh.
third, but it was an
Yeah.
83-minute PB in the heat for him.
He crushed
And
at that race. He did so
he
well.
did. He did. But he said afterwards, actually, I wasn't fully trained for that race. And he said, if I can go into Western States without being 100% trained to the minute
Uh-huh.
and run a time that was half an hour better than what I was going out to achieve, he said, I'm super excited about CCC. And he said he's been taking 2 currants morning and night for the month after
Yeah.
Western States, and he's dropped his dose back down to 2 capsules before his training session, and rest day sessions now, and he is sounding super confident and
Awesome.
hoping for a podium result at the very least
Well,
here.
I will
He's
definitely
gunning for
be
the
following
win.
along that. That's
Thank
exciting to
you.
see. So,
Yeah, we're really
yeah,
excited to see how he gets on there.
for sure. So, how did you get into this whole field? I mean, and black currants in general. How did you land here?
I know. It's a very good question. So my first passion and career was actually in thoroughbred horse racing. And so I fell in love with physiology and nutrition for performance with horses, and I studied that in Australia, but then I transferred those skills into journalism,
Mhm.
and I traveled to the UK, and I had 15 years in media and publishing in that field. And then on a family trip back to New Zealand, one year, my father, who was a real health icon in the New Zealand industry, he was a pharmacist and a formulator of supplements, and he
Okay.
saw some really interesting early research on New Zealand blackcurrants for muscle recovery. And there was a little bit of data showing it was great for blood flow as well. And so this sparked an idea to get at the forefront of the blackcurrant research and see whether or not it might enhance performance and help athletes, and also potentially have other health benefits. And so
Mhm.
I returned to the UK and I approached the University of Chichester, and they decided to take a bit of a flyer on it, and they did a pilot study actually measuring the effect of lactate using blackcurrant, and they found that it reduced the production of lactate across all exercise intensities. And so they thought, well, if it's reducing fatigue during exercise by rights, it should also improve performance. And so that started the journey. And now we have active research projects in North America, all across Europe, in Asia, in Australia, and New Zealand now. And so it's really, we have a tiger by the
Yeah.
tail, because the more we look, the more we find. And we know that it's fast acting, it's really quite potent, it's, really safe, has a lot of health benefits, and is wonderful for cardiovascular health and metabolic health as well. And so we've actually just published a new study, Jill, which is worth mentioning here, because it's a study measuring for the first time the effect of one dose of 4 capsules and a peak trained Ironman athlete. And
Oh,
this was literally only published 2 days ago. So this is super hot off the press. And the scientists weren't expecting to find anything, because the issue with testing like extremely fit athletes is that they're so well conditioned and adapted. It's really hard to improve their systems even more.
yeah.
And so the researchers said, look, we went into this not expecting to see anything in this athlete with this, type of training status. And they found actually something quite remarkable. They found that this one really high dose, lowered lactate by 40% across 4 hours
Or
of cycling.
0%.
Or 0%. It has had
Wow.
a massive effect on reducing those fatigue indicators across a really prolonged cycling test. And they also saw it lowered his perceived exertion across the 4 hours. So it was less hard for him to do it compared to the placebo condition. And it also lowered his heart rate by 10 beats per minute. So they're saying, looking at all of those factors, which, really underpin performance, it should improve. We're going to do a performance study now assessing this new dosing rationale on a cohort. So, more athletes to see really what numbers we're going to see in terms of potentially improving performance for endurance. So you've got a real exclusive there, Jill. We haven't even sent the press release out. Yeah.
Wow, that's exciting. Is that going to be posted on your website?
Yes, it will be. So
Excellent.
I'm just in the process of circulating that. So that's a really cool finding. And the scientists said, we're so surprised to see this, but it is a really exciting moment for the blackcurrant research, because it moves forward our understanding about, it can really improve really trained individuals, kind of metabolic and cardiovascular markers. So there we have it.
That's super cool. So are black currants just like a fruit that you might grab and snack on, or is it different? Because I'm not even sure that I know exactly what a black currant is like.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a blueberry, but it's
Okay.
smaller and it's darker in color, so it's
Mhm.
more of a black color. And black currants were grown in America once upon a time, but they were actually found to carry a fungus that
Oh,
threatened the timber industry in the States in the 1930s and 1940s. And so they banned the black currant production, and all the bushes were pulled out to protect the timber
uh-huh.
industry. So that's kind of the backstory why you don't get black currants in America. Now they are being replanted now, but I think it's still very much an industry in its infancy. But normally, if you could get hold of fresh black currants, yeah, you'd treat them like blueberries.
Okay.
They're very similar. They've got a beautiful flavor and aroma, and you
Yeah.
would just snack on them as a berry.
So how much black currant or the bioactives inside of it are inside of like the capsules versus like how many you would have to eat if you ate the fresh fruit?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So we say that one capsule is equivalent to about a large handful of
Okay.
black currant. Yeah,
Okay.
just to put
Yeah.
a visual on it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
kind of figured because it would have to be concentrated down and, turned into the powder and stuff. So, and now that
Yeah.
I say the powder that's inside the capsules, have you ever thought of just selling like the powder so that people could like put a scoop into a smoothie or something like that?
Yeah, look, we're actually looking at that. And look, I think these freeze-dried whole fruit
Hmm.
powders are really, really popular now and easily
That's exactly
accessible.
what made me think of it because I've seen so many of those popping up.
Yeah, but I guess the problem is, Jill, is that you never actually know how many bioactives you're
That's
getting
true.
in that kind of product, because you don't see standardized whole fruit powders. So,
Hmm.
they're great to take to throw into a smoothie, but you don't actually know how much you're getting.
Yeah.
But you can just throw your capsule of Curranz in straight
True.
into if you're having a smoothie, you just chuck the whole thing in, and you can have it in the same way, or you can add it to apple juice, that kind of thing as
Oh,
well.
perfect. I hadn't even
Yeah.
thought to throw the whole capsule in. I mean, you're consuming the whole capsule anyway. I was thinking that you would have to pull it apart and dump the contents in, and that doesn't make any sense because you are ingesting the capsule anyway.
Yeah, and look, it dissolves really, really quickly when
Yeah,
it's exposed to any liquid. So it'll dissolve anyway, whatever, liquid suspension you put it in.
awesome. So you've got so many runners that are fans of your product. Are you a runner? I'm just curious.
You know, I'm a tennis player, and
Oh,
so I kind of run, but I run around a
yes.
tennis court and I run for fitness. So I'm a recreational runner, but
Yeah.
yeah, my big love is tennis. But in my earlier days, I was a competitive equestrian rider. That was my main sports focus. But I love team sports and team-based sports like,
Yeah.
tennis and running around and having a good social, with my sport.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really
Riding
great.
horses is kind of wild because you look at it from a distance and think you're just sitting there taking a ride. But the couple of times that I have ridden horses and I got off and started, I'm sore. Why am I sore from riding a horse?
That's right. It's a whole body
Yeah.
exercise. You discover muscles that you've never discovered before when
Yep.
you ride horses. So it is really physical, and actually you've got to be really fit to be properly riding fit.
Yeah. Yep. And tennis is great too because most of the time, those of us who run primarily, we're just used to running straight forward. Tennis is
Mm.
great because you get lateral movement. And I think that that's something that a lot of us who are very focused on running need to remember to get some lateral movement in there because that's just going to make you more stable. So,
Absolutely. And it's good to introduce, so different movements into your activity and
yeah.
use your body in different ways. And
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
So if people start taking Curranz, how should they go about tracking to see if there is some kind of improvement? I think that it's good to have some kind of baseline and figure out if it's helping you. Because if you're just taking things willy-nilly whenever and you're not paying attention, then
Yeah,
why
no,
bother?
that's a really good question because sometimes people will take it and go, yeah, but I wasn't sure what I was meant to be monitoring.
Yeah.
So we have what we call a scoring system. So if you're using Curranz for recovery, if you're using it for GI stress, or you're using it to improve your endurance and your performance, then what we recommend is that you do a workout and you score yourself, and it might be on a scale of 1 to 5, like 1 was terrible and 5 was great. And you do that for the workout. And if, for example, it's recovery and the days following that workout, now it needs to be a session that will produce DOMS, something
Mhm.
that is hard, that will
Yeah.
make you feel sore, because that is the proof in the pudding with this product. And then you score yourself. So if you're, 3 out of 5 or 4 out of 5 sore after that session, make a note of how long it takes you to recover from it. Is it 1 day, 2 days, 3 days? And then after you're kind of recovering, introduce the product, take it. You can take it just before the next session or take it for a couple of days would be better.
Mhm.
And then repeat that same workout and then score yourself again, just to see how your recovery has improved. Are you less sore? Are you less fatigued? Is your readiness to train the next day or
Yeah.
2 days after, has that improved? And that's like a really simple way of very quickly determining whether your recovery has improved. Now, for
Mhm.
GI stress and performance, we do say take it for a week. So
Okay.
you just need to kind of be mindful that you need that dosing lead in
Yeah.
before repeating the session, and seeing that. But look, take the product for a couple of weeks and over a month. And one of the most noticeable things that people also observe, and even people who do not use it for exercise, is that their energy improves. And that's a really easy one to measure as well.
Yeah.
So, polyphenols, and the bioactives in the product, they are really great for feeding your good gut microbiome. And gut health is such a big topic at the moment. So
Mhm.
these are really wonderful little plant compounds that will give you that, brilliant, good bacteria effect, and they are responsible for your energy production as well. So that's a really simple explanation of
Yeah.
why people should also observe improved energy. But if you're busy and you're trying to train in and around, a family
Mhm.
life and a career, this will just really help with your day-to-day stamina and doing your exercise and recovering and getting on with life as well, Jill.
Awesome. So how do people get their hands on Curranz?
So if you go to curranzusa.com, All of our research and information is on there, and that will take you through to the order page on our UK website, curranz.com. And you can, and it's Curranz Original, and it comes in 30 capsule packs. And listeners of your podcast can get a 20% discount if they'd like to try it for themselves too, Jill. So if they put in the discount code Jill Runs at checkout, then they will get a sweet deal on their first pack of Curranz.
Awesome. And we'll reiterate all of that information on my website and in descriptions and everything that is needed so people can get that code.
Fantastic.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today, Fleur. This has been really fun, and it's been really interesting to learn about something new, and I'm kind of hoping it will help improve my running, because I feel like my running's been a little bit off and wonky since having a child and then having thyroid disorder. It's just kind of like I want to get back on that steady path.
Yeah, well, I'm absolutely positive Curranz will help get you back onto that trajectory as well with your running. I'm sure it will bring about improvement.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Since I spoke with Fleur, I did a 2-week loading period taking Curranz, which means that I took at least 2 pills a day for a few weeks. And during that time, 3 things happened. Hayden Hawks won the UTMB World Championships. I'm still not an ultra runner, and my entire family came down with a really bad cold. Now, are these things related? Not necessarily, but Hayden Hawks does attribute a lot of his recent running success with taking Curranz, and he's sponsored by them. We'll take it with a grain of salt. You know, I'm not paid by Curranz to do any of this, and I will say Curranz has had a positive effect on my running in that my gut feels a little bit more stable after this 2-week loading period. But the really interesting thing that I wanted to mention was the fact that my entire family came down with a cold. My husband got it first. He came home from work sick. He was coughing. He was runny nose. He was sore throat. He was just miserable. And a couple days after that, my daughter came down with it, and she was coughing and hacking and runny nose and went through an entire box of tissues. While I wasn't completely immune to it, I only got like a little bit of a slightly runny nose and a slightly scratchy throat, and I was not down for the count at all. In fact, I went and helped a friend move, and I was able to do that without feeling too run down. I got super sore from that, but that was from lifting a lot of heavy objects, and I recovered from all of that muscle soreness within a couple days. So I'm feeling like Curranz had a positive effect on the immunity as well. And poking around their website, they have an immune product. So I feel like this has potential, and I'm going to keep playing around with it in my life. If you're interested, again, use that discount code Jill Runs. It gets you 20% off, and I'm going to use it to get myself 20% off of a purchase and keep taking Curranz and see how it works out for me. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you later.